All right. Hey, guys. We are live with yet another Note to File podcast live. Bear with me here. We're going to try something a little bit different. It could be an absolute terrible disaster, or it could be really cool. So let's see how it goes. But my whole hope here is to kind of open it up, create a little bit of an open forum for everybody to who wants to come on, talk. Maybe take a few minutes. I probably might limit depending on how many people are interested in coming up. Anyways, we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. See how many people actually show up. So if you want a link or are interested in coming on, leave a message in the comments. I'll probably for now I'll probably stick to sending it via LinkedIn message. I don't have much of a presence on YouTube, and I don't know that a lot of viewers come from there anyway. But instead of making it completely public, I'm happy to shoot some messages to you guys who are interested in coming on. And if it just goes terribly, I'll just delete the whole thing and pretend like this never happened. So you won't be able to prove how miserably I failed. So it looks like I've already got somebody in stream here. Ethan, can you hear me right now, Ethan? No, maybe not. I'm gonna have to pull him up on the stream, so I'm gonna give this a shot here. Here we go. I'm gonna pull you up, Ethan.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me when you were in sort of the little?
Yeah, it actually came through pretty clear.
Okay.
It's a pretty neat setup.
Well, I'm still kind of figuring it out, so I'm not sure how good or bad or indifferent it's going to be, but getting it to go. So awesome. First guest up. Appreciate you, Ethan. Introduce yourself for anybody who doesn't know who you are.
Yeah, sure. Ethan Seville, solutions architect at Slope, former research coordinator, former phlebotomist, former everything doer that research coordinators do, all that good stuff. My job at Slope is to make sure that we're always listening to the problems of the industry, the chaos, the panic, all of that, and making things that actually fix that chaos and panic. So I'm a big fan of what you do, Brad, for the community, and the voice you give to just calling out the quirks and the kind of odd stuff that we encounter all the time, and try to do something about it, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a fine balance sometimes between just complaining or really, I like to look at it as people don't know what people deal with, at the site level oftentimes. So a lot of it's just an attempt to be like, look, man, here's what we do. I don't always have a great solution. Oftentimes I don't have a good solution for, some of the problems that we face, but the first step is just recognizing that we face them, in the first place. So, I appreciate that. What's on your mind today? Anything specifically?
Oh no, not much. Just appreciate this, especially the live form. I think it's really, really cool. I think the spirit of collaboration that you're promoting is kind of like the key part of everything, right? It's kind of like you're saying, a lot of people just don't know the issues. They're not familiar with it. We encounter a lot of silos in the industry, right? So it's like you have teams that work really closely together, cross-functional teams, and then it stops, and you have like a data flow that is maybe just a phone call or an email. And that's the only communication between, say, a site and their CRO, and maybe some monitoring visits help a little. And then you have more data silos between the CRO and the sponsor, and then it just doesn't really lend itself to collaboration. But we're dealing with a multifaceted problem in running clinical trials. We're dealing with so much just stuff and chaos. So I just love the fact that you're even doing this live forum where people can just come and talk, because it's the only thing that could ever make progress on that. Because if we don't talk about the issues, if we don't actually bring them up, like you said, that is the first step, but it is also the essential step in making any meaningful change.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I do the podcast and I like doing that. I think it's very, useful and informative, but I mean, what I really want to see more of and try to promote and what I crave is just that is engagement, right? Like open conversations that look, I've talked, I've recorded, I think 70 episodes. I've talked a lot, said a lot of the same stuff over and over again. Yeah. I love to hear from everyone else. Like, what else do we need to talk about? What else needs to be fixed? What other issues are we having? And it's actually pretty encouraging, I think, to see that. I think there's a lot more people sort of taking it, on themselves to do that. I don't know that it was that way even 2 or 3 years ago. We're really starting to see a big movement, especially at the site level, towards people feeling a little more empowered to talk about their problems without being scared of sponsor repercussions or vendor repercussions, whatever the case may be. And again, to your point, I think the only way that we actually get any better is by first acknowledging these are the problems, and it's not always popular. It hurts sometimes, and it looks bad, and it's embarrassing. But I mean, I think that's the hump we have to get over. And I know, and certainly you've probably had some interest in some of these terrible lab disaster posts that I've
Yeah,
made
those are my favorite.
Over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we get a whole lot of chatter on our internal comms whenever we see those types of posts, and it happens all the time. It's not just coming from you. It's like a universal thing because it's a universal problem. It's just how clinical trials work, right? It's kind of the status quo of sending just truckloads of stuff to sites. In fact, we were on a call just this morning with a company that was their only problem. The only reason why they were reaching out to us was to solve the fact that they don't have space in their clinic to hold stuff. So it's limiting their ability to bring in another trial. And just that, they're like, can you help us with this stuff? And it's like, just because the industry is so slow to adopt, not even 21st century, a 20th century supply chain,
Right.
you are limiting a company from growing and providing access to clinical trials because your way of doing things is a rate limiting factor. And it's just crazy. But I think it's really cool because just having a voice to it really does start to make some change. And I came on your podcast. It was over 2 years ago now, which is pretty crazy that it's already been that long. But we get, even to this day, between the podcast that we recorded and then the one you did with Alex, our solutions engineer, we get to this day people coming and saying, hey, I heard about you through Note to File. And it's really, really cool because they're going back through your archive and listening to those recordings literally years after the fact. But it's a persistent thing that they're, you have coordinators looking for information about the industry. You have project managers trying to get a handle on things. And then you have industry naive people coming from outside, right? From other walks of life and jumping into the CRA world or other project manager roles. And they're just trying to figure out what all this chaos is. And that's really the cool thing, is because you're getting fresh perspectives, from outside. Like, for instance, our founder, Russ, he came from an e-commerce world, right? So his whole thing was, why is the supply chain so broken in clinical trials when it's been solved? This is a solved problem. Why is no one fixing this? And that sort of outsider perspective is really, really fresh. What it requires, though, is a balance of, hey, and here's what's actually going on in the industry, and let us guide you through this. So together, those two things I think are really cool, and community engagement is kind of the linchpin to make that work. So it's really, really cool.
I agree. Well, Ethan, I'm going to boot you off. We got some other people. Cool. Thank you for coming on and
absolutely
getting in this experiment. Look, if you are a site and you want to better manage your lab supplies, check out slope.io. I mean, what they provide is awesome. We need to talk again. I know we've done this a couple of times because I'm a lazy asshole and I haven't been able to get it implemented. But as we grow, I need it more and more. So again, if you're a site, reach out to Ethan. I I hope I get to meet Alex next week. I'm going to be in Wisconsin.
Oh
I
yeah,
think he's
cool.
going to be at
Yeah,
the
I
same
think you're going
conference.
to be at the same panel. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll get to meet him in person. So that's pretty cool. But Ethan,
Awesome.
thanks for coming on. I'm going to move down the line here.
See y'all later.
Looks like Jess. Are you still there, Jess? I'm going to bring you up. I know you're not on camera. That's okay.
Hey, Brad.
There you are. Awesome.
Here I am. Yeah. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you? I know it's been a minute. Jess is the king of expanded access, as I like to think of him. So tell the people, give yourself a little brief introduction.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. And I have to confess at the outset that I've become a major fan of your podcast. It's been my secret vice over the last few weeks, is going back into the archives. It's been a great experience. So yeah, quick introduction. My background is as a staff economist in a hedge fund. I worked most of my career in finance until 2008, 2009, when a member of my family was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And from that time forward, I've been a little closer to your neck of the woods in clinical trial design, and particularly aspects of access to the treatments and the diagnostics that are available in clinical trials for people kind of at this tragic cutting edge, where existing standard of care is just not adequate to deal with either the realities of the disease or the realities of even understanding the disease, which we have in neurodegenerative conditions. So for the last 13, 14 years, I've been focused on this topic called pre-market access to investigational products, otherwise known as expanded access. And I really just wanted to join today to answer any questions about it. I wasn't sure about the format. I will say that really quickly, expanded access is essentially clinical trials for people who cannot get into regular clinical trials. And if that sounds overly simplistic or a little bit odd to some people who might have learned it differently, don't worry, you're not alone. It's tragically misunderstood. There's a lot of fragmentation in the narratives around compassionate use and expanded access. And the theory that I try to get out there, and that we've got some momentum behind at the Global Expanded Access Summit, is that expanded access programs are vastly underutilized for the sections of the population who just do not have access to the clinical trial enterprise, either through eligibility criteria or through timing or through geography. So yeah, maybe I'll stop there. We can talk about we do have something called the Expanded Access Summit, which we do every year. We took a pause for the pandemic, but we're going to start it up again in 2020.
Yeah, I know it's something we've talked about before, offline, but I mean, I guess, can you compare and contrast clinical trial participation with expanded access? And to me, we've talked about this too. I mean, there's sort of a dovetail there to a large degree in terms of, a lot of the same sort of necessary things to be done, if you're going to get somebody involved in expanded access or get them enrolled in a clinical trial. But why do you think we haven't seen as much sort of uptake in expanded access, especially in places where there's already clinical trial infrastructure already in place? I mean, what would sort of describe that disconnect?
Yeah, sure. So those are really two topics. One is the kind of that Venn diagram of research trials versus this other kind of clinical trials that I just dropped onto your podcast here, expanded access or healthcare trials. And then the other, what are the barriers to adoption? If I understand you right, I think those are the two things. So first, think of clinical trials and expanded access programs as two sides of the spectrum of introducing investigational products to points of care. We have to do this under the Act for investigational purposes, to establish that a new product is suitable for market adoption, and establish the safety and efficacy or the diagnostic utility if it's a diagnostic. So primarily for research purposes, but we always have, physicians will always tell you there's always an intent to treat. So there's another aspect to research trials, and that is the care, particularly in therapeutic areas where there's really, a serious unmet medical need. Every Netflix TV show, for example, has a character who, experiences a terrible disease, or a family member with a terrible unsolved disease, and the storyline includes trying to get into a clinical trial. Did the drug work or not work? So it's, even though there's a concept of equipoise, there's also a concept of turning every stone for treatment options. So clinical trials is primarily for research, secondarily for the healthcare utility for the patient. Well, what if there was some sort of mechanism to accommodate the substantial parts of any disease population who, for any of a number of reasons, could not access the clinical trial enterprise, which, by the way, is not intended to deliver broad-scale investigational medicine. And we've seen CRACO come about during the last several years, and it's been exciting. And we're recognizing the utility, we're recognizing recruitment aspects, and talking about the outcomes of patients who participate in research versus those who don't. Fantastic, we love it. But we cannot forget that at the end of the day, these are commercially funded research projects. So there is another mechanism. It's called expanded access. It came about during the 1980s. And these are primarily for treatment, secondarily for real-world evidence generation. And that's encouraged in not every country, but it's absolutely encouraged in the United States. So summary, to keep it simple, is, think of two elements, kind of like two siblings in the backseat of the car that nobody expects to get along, research and care, but they actually do get along pretty well. And in the car ride going to Disneyland, the research sibling gets the best seat, so it's primary, and care is secondary. Maybe on the way back, it's the other way around. So for everybody else who can't get into the clinical trial, you have expanded access programs. I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, no, I think that's obviously a super interesting concept. I can't tell you how many patients we turn away from a clinical trial because of obviously rigid inclusion-exclusion criteria that, maybe there's an expanded access opportunity for them. I'll take a quick question here from the audience too. Thank you, Clary Waldron. Does right to try affect expanded access, or is that sort of a different regulatory mechanism? Is that even I still struggle sometimes with the differences between some of these different verbiages.
You're not alone. So right to try is a legislative mechanism that was promoted by a wide range of stakeholders a few years ago to mandate that FDA would not stand in the way of an expanded access program or a pre-market access program. So we really should think of it as a separate mechanism to reach the same objective. A lot of the people in that discussion, I think it was 2017, a lot of the people in that discussion said, hey, expanded access promoters, we already have something for this. It's called, what did I say? The right to try promoters. We already have something. It's called expanded access. It's been around for 30 years. And if the only difference is to sidestep the FDA authorization requirement, guess what? FDA has never said no. They have an extraordinary track record in being very liberal and facilitating to what kinds of programs are eligible for expanded access. So having said that, right to try, from a legislative or regulatory perspective, is very, very similar to expanded access and achieves essentially the same purpose. It did something else that I just want to say, and that is it established that the culture of this country that first adopted right to try in all the states, and then it went to the federal level, it's very much focused on the prerogative of the physician and the patient together, as opposed to a central single regulatory decision maker that makes every decision about whether something is monolithically suitable or monolithically unsuitable for every patient. That's just not appropriate. And this country really, I would say, receives that and embodies that message more than most. What's the track record of right to try now? It's very few. There's not a lot of documented cases of a life science company electing to go around the sort of the traditional FDA mechanism. for some reasons that might be obvious to some. These are companies that have a lot of money, a lot of stakeholder capital involved in that relationship with FDA. But there are a few cases where they've just done it, and having that in the back pocket, you could say, may not be a bad thing for the libertarians out there that want to ensure that companies and physicians have the ability to do this.
Fair enough. All right, I got one more question for you before we move on here. I think interesting question that I'm sure you have strong feelings about. Is there enough awareness about expanded access, and can patient groups help promote this? Thank you, Richard Smith. Obviously, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you're going to say that there's not enough awareness about expanded access.
I think there's definitely not enough awareness about how it works. However, the word is out. Everybody's heard of expanded access. At the beginning of the pandemic, I think it was April 2020, Vice President Pence, Secretary Azar, Director Birx, everybody was talking about expanded access. How many of them actually understood how it worked is a different matter. And the difference between expanded access, which originally in the 1980s was envisioned as a large cohort mechanism for large numbers of people who couldn't get into a research trial, the difference between that and one version of it, which is single patient compassionate use, I would say is really misunderstood. You see a lot of companies saying, we love expanded access. We do it. Hey, doctor, send in your request and we'll consider it. Well, okay, let's step back here. What's happening there is a use of single patient expanded access, which is designed for exceptional cases or a case where there's no program that's been established. A physician can now in the 3926 form, submit an expedited request for a particular patient, but that's not the only way. There is this top-down cohort expanded access program that I would say is, to the listener's question, widely underappreciated. So I would say no, it's not widely enough understood.
Fair enough. All right, I'm gonna bump you and move along, but where can people find you, Jess?
Yeah, the website is called accesspharma.com, accesspharma.com. And on there, we've got a lot of educational material, a lot of videos. You might see an old version of the Expanded Access Summit, but we're doing it again in 2023. So that's where you can find me, accesspharma.com. Personally, I'm on LinkedIn, Jess Rayborn.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Jess. We'll talk soon, man.
Thank you.
Later. Thank you, Jess, for joining in our experiment here. Move down the line to one of my favorite guys to talk to in the tech space, Doug Bain. What's up, Doug?
Hey, Brad.
Why are you still awake? It's late over there, isn't it?
It's not too late yet.
Okay.
Yes, we're at, what time is it? 7:23 in the UK.
Oh, okay, that's not so bad. What's on your mind today? Or introduce yourself first, if you would.
So first of all, yeah, my name's Doug Bain. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at a mid-sized CRO called KCR. And I'm probably one of the vendors' worst enemies to some regards because I have a strong opinion and I'm not afraid to share it. So, one of the things I'm thinking about right now is I'm trying to think ahead of what will be the technology space in 10 years' time, and how can we get to that? You and I have talked about the horrible pains that sites have got to go through right now, and I've got opinions about how we got to this situation where, as you said, I've got 50 logins, and with DCT, you're scared that could turn into 100 logins. As was mentioned in one of your recent podcasts. And I'm just sort of thinking, right, what do we need to do? What steps do we need to take to get to the point where that doesn't happen? And people like yourself can say, at the end of the day, I used technology and it was really good. And I think we've got a way to go. So I was thinking, what I would like to do is, I think it's very rude, but I'm sort of answering my own question to some degree, and maybe other people might have some questions there. But I do feel that there's an opportunity for, let's call it an Amazon of the clinical research tech space to emerge. And what I mean by that is a company who can see the opportunity to provide a platform for clinical research, and importantly, a platform that is open. an open platform. So if you ever used technology in the last sort of 10 years, the companies that have been successful, companies like WordPress, or even Amazon actually to a degree, where what they've done is they've been successful in their field, but they haven't tried to go too far. They've said, we're going to open up under our base platform to enable you guys to plug in, not just from the login perspective and not even just from the data perspective, but from the whole workflow perspective. So you could say, yep, I'm going to log into my clinical research Amazon system. By the way, it won't be Amazon. And I'm going to go through the life cycle of my patients or my trials or my sponsors or whatever. And it'll be in one place. So you have your single login for all the studies you do in that platform, all the sponsors, for all your patients. And one place will tell you what you need to do. So today, single sign-on is sort of emerging gradually, but I still think you guys have got to log in and go, right, I've got 10 trials, I've got 2 systems per trial, I've got to go into system 1, and then after I've done that, I've got to system 2, system 3, system 4, system 5. And after about 2 hours, you've been through these systems, you go, right, I think I've seen all the things I need to do. That's a complete nightmare. Now, single sign-on to some degree is not really solving that, because you'll have to go to the systems and see, where's my task list for the IWRS? Where's my task list for my EDC? Where's my review list for my ePro for the sites? It's completely unsustainable. And there's a need, right? And I think it will happen because there's, I think, sufficient value in that being achieved.
So I'm kind of intrigued by your WordPress analogy, because I haven't used WordPress a lot, but it's a platform, but you basically go get third-party plugins, right? So you can build kind of whatever you want on top of a base platform with the plugins that you choose to use or not use, right? So,
yep.
I mean, that seems kind of intuitive, right? Where, you could potentially have a base platform and then plug in, the different aspects that are necessary, but it's all right there. It's all right there on one page, or through a very few clicks, rather than entirely different systems you're having to go in and out of. I mean, is there anyone well positioned right now to provide something like this? Is this even on the radar, you think, at this point?
I don't think it's recognized fully. There's companies coming into the marketplace, and to an understandable level, they're going, I'm going to solve that problem. So I'm going to go, I'm going to solve e-consent, or I'm going to solve the next big thing. They're not going, oh, what we really need is a platform that sits underneath all this, right? So the chap, and I've forgotten his name, the chap who designed WordPress, obviously recognized that everybody seems to be writing their own websites. What we really need is there's a degree of standardization as to how you go through that process of developing websites, and these are the pieces of the puzzle that need to be standard, and these are the pieces of the puzzle that don't need to be standard, and the plugin vendors can adapt. And then then the consumers like you and I can go, right, I'm just going to take one of these, and then I'm going to put my content in there, and it's all going to look great. But behind the scenes, I didn't actually need to cut HTML code. I didn't need to do my JavaScript stuff. I basically just had to plug the piece of the components I needed for my trial, and I can then run my trial. So I think that'll happen. Now, as far as who can do it, I mean, there's been APIs around for a long time, 20 years, and there's been more recently RESTful APIs. But the access to these APIs has been restricted really to programmers, okay? So APIs, application program interface. So if you're a programmer, you go, yeah, no problems, I can do that. But that's, people who are doing clinical trials are not programmers. They employ programmers, but they're not programmers. We need people, human beings, like I suppose even you and me now, because I'm not programming anymore, to be able to go and say, like I would do with WordPress, I'll say, right, I'd like an e-consent in there, and I would like to have my wearable Fitbit thing over there, but it's all going to fit to this platform. So things like 21 CFR Part 11, single sign-on, integrity of data, data blending, these should all be part of the underlying platform, and the user experience, importantly, so that I don't have to learn another UI, should all be basically the same. Yeah, we're going to have skinning and all that sort of stuff, but basically We can all, when we're in one trial, everything's going to work the same way. And by the way, this should extend to patients. I don't think the patients should be left out. They're all stakeholders. Patients should be able to go in and they could go, there's lots of challenges. Identity management, that's a challenge. I would like patients to own their own identity. And I think that's maybe a founding element of this. Every person has got to have their own identity, not by the fact they happen to work for this company or that company and that company. Everybody really has to have their own identity. That's really a key to good single sign-on.
That feels for some reason far off to me, but maybe not. Also, I just want to point out Mike's comment here that anything's better than SIP. I know we talked about doing some naming and shaming. I'll never once miss an opportunity to say how much I despise SIP. So sorry to go on a tangent there, but I guess it's looking for an example of people who aren't doing it right. It's shared investigator platform. It's hell on earth for sites to try to navigate. Maybe it's good for somebody in the background, but it is not good. It's not good for us.
I mean, to me, the fundamental, I wouldn't say I'm not a SIP expert. I was involved in some discussions early on about it. But my concern there is it's not open,
Right.
To me, the right environment is you should be able to say, look, this is an open environment. This is the key to this is an open environment where there's no stopper to say, no, sorry, hold on. You're a competing vendor. I'm not going to let you in because you're competing with us, which is what we have. But we also, by the way, have that with a lot of the API providers. So I wouldn't name them, but some of them will say, could you register through this partner platform, and then we'll check your registration. And if we think you might in any way compete, we're going to block you from being able to feed data to our platform. And you're going, okay.
And that's, I'm having more of these conversations. Everyone's sort of raising the bar, raising the alarm and saying interoperability. I mean, is that realistic though? I mean, to your point, are people going to open the doors and say, hey, sure, let's share, our data via API? I mean, is that even reasonable to expect?
I think, I think it just has to be taken up a level. So it's become increasingly easy to use things like Fitbit data. So let's imagine you like exercise, or you get on your bike and you want to share your exercise data with the next app provider. You can do that, right? It's not difficult. I don't need to program an API to Fitbit to publish my data into Fitbit. There's point and click tools for that already. And I think we just have to go to the next tier level. We just have to go one step up to say, I've got my this data, I've got my that data. And actually, by the way, even extended EHR data. I think the patient should own their own EHR data, their electronic medical record data. And they should be able to say, I'm happy to share that or a subset of that data there. It's going to be my choice. I'm the patient, it's my data, I'm going to share it. So I think there's the pluggable interface and just a next level up on being able to share and transfer data. We've just got to mature a bit more. It's not easy, but I think it can be done. I think the tech is evolving that we can do these things.
Well, my fingers are crossed. I won't hold my breath, but my fingers are crossed. Doug, where can people find you? I'm sorry, I'm going to bump you. We got some more people lined up.
So I know. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn. So if you want to contact me, or you can email me at douglas.bain@kcrcro.com.
When I have questions I don't know about tech, Doug's the guy I want to reach out to. So hit him up, bother him. He loves having these conversations.
I might not always be right. But I certainly have an opinion. So
fair enough. Doug, thanks, man. Thanks for joining in. All right. Next up, Danielle.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's been a minute. You're a busy lady though.
Yes, I am. Sometimes I look at my schedule and I say, did I really mean to sign up for all of this?
I can't tell you how many days I look at my calendar and I go, nah, you know what? I'm canceling half of this today. Sometimes I just don't have the energy to do it.
I feel you, because it seems like as soon as I'm done with one trip, I'm going on another trip. So October is extremely busy for all of the conferences. it's SCRS, it's Magi. I'm going to the Florence, the Research Revolution. I'm going to another conference, Young Black Pharma. We also have an event with Par Excel for a full day event in October as well. So I'm looking at my calendar like, why?
Right.
But they say that the fall months, the fall and spring are very busy for conferences. So, and that's what I like to do. I like to encourage the members to attend the conferences and show up and to network and to really get yourself out there. So that's what I have been doing. I've been talking to the people that are organizing the events and asking them, is there a discount? And then thank you to you for your ticket that I didn't even get a chance. I'm gonna have to make a post about that, Brad. If you're comfortable, Brad, I'm learning now. I need to. If
Yeah,
you're comfortable with me,
yeah, it's fine.
okay.
I try to look. I'm believe it or not, I'm pretty introverted, keep to myself kind of person, regardless of the stuff you see me say on LinkedIn. But no, that's fine. It's any way I can help in any small way. I'm happy to do it.
Yep. See, that's why I wanted to ask you. I get that energy that you're an introvert, so I wanted to ask you and not be like, hey.
No, I appreciate that. Well, what else? What else is on your mind today? And give yourself a little intro. I didn't give you a chance to. I just assume everybody knows who you are. So tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. My name is Danielle Mitchell. I'm the CEO and founder of Black Women in Clinical Research, Black Men in Clinical Research, and Minorities in Clinical Research. Started Black Women in Clinical Research in 2019. This was after I attended an investigator meeting in a room of hundreds of people. There were only 2 Black women, including myself. So it really made me question whether or not there was a lack of diversity in the room or the industry. This all started with a Facebook group. We are now over 12,000 members strong, and I am still shocked and amazed that I've been able to touch people's lives and help people get into the industry, because I felt like there weren't a lot of resources. So, I started from the ground up. I tell people all the time, I cold call clinical research clinics. I ask them, can I shadow? Can I do an internship? So, when I'm telling people about my experience, I'm letting you know that I literally started from the ground up and that it is completely possible to not have clinical research experience and get into the industry. I know a lot of people feel like, okay, I can't get in. So for me, and what I always tell my members, that they need to think outside of the box and, not do the norm. I know a lot of times when it comes to other industries, you think, okay, I can just apply and they're going to hire me. And that doesn't always work. So you have to be creative and you have to network. And a lot of times I talk to people, a lot of my members, a lot of them are introverts as well. So they're not really used to having that cold conversation with people or sending them messages or, cold calling. So it literally, you have to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. And when you're uncomfortable, that's when things, that's when opportunities happen. That's when doors open. So I've learned that early in my clinical research career, that it's important to put yourself out there. And, you want to shine. I'm gonna be like Rihanna, shine bright like a diamond. Like you want to make sure that you are making a name for yourself, and branding yourself is so important to do that in this industry. So I always encourage the members to, think a little bit differently when it comes to clinical research, because this is a different industry than a lot of other industries. So you want to make yourself stand out. You want to go to these conferences as well, especially if you want to network with different people in the industry.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's how you grow. It's putting yourself outside your comfort zone. All of this has been a big exercise for me in getting outside of my comfort zone. But as a result, I've met amazing people. I've had opportunities I never would have otherwise even sniffed, unless you get out there and talk to people, put yourself out there. It can be scary, but I have a
Yeah.
question for you. First of all, I want to say this. I'm always kind of, cynical and skeptical about pharma and the things that they say versus the things that they do. It seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're really making some big strides in partnering with some of these pharma and CRO companies. So, I see your posts and I see the stuff that you're able to accomplish. Do you feel there's starting to be better real attention to the issues, especially revolving around diversity? I mean, do you feel like you're starting to really make some solid inroads now at this point?
Absolutely. I am happy to create these partnerships with companies because there's so many people that are saying we have a lack of diversity. And so a lot of times I want to wave my hand and say, hey, the diverse people are here. Well, I
Do
meet
something
with
about it.
so many members who, are very talented, but because they don't always have that direct clinical research experience, they're overlooked. And just talking to my members recently with the Pharma Times award, a lot of people have been involved in. We have two of our members that are nominated for those awards. In their background, they didn't have any clinical research experience. So in under a year of just really going into the industry, learning as much as they could, they were able to be nominated for these positions. So this to me is just truth that if you don't have clinical research experience, you can excel. You don't have to start, I feel like in a sense I started, from the ground up, but everyone doesn't have to, start from the bottom in order to be successful in clinical research. So I figured out what works. I know what works. And so I think the hardest part a lot of times is convincing companies to consider Black women in clinical research to help them with assisting with diverse talent because, over 12,000 members, we have a lot of diversity in our group. We have nurses, we have doctors, we have people who have their MDs, their PhDs. There's so many talented people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis that just need an opportunity to shine and just to put themselves in those positions, like to give people an opportunity. I think a lot of times we just need to give people a chance. It doesn't need to be difficult to get into clinical research, especially when you're going to train people. So give people an opportunity, look at their transferable skills. So I would say that's the toughest part, convincing companies that, hey, you don't have to, this 2-year requirement that we have, I really want to tear that down and say like, okay, can we reevaluate this, and can we look at people based upon their skills that they have and not based upon their experience?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've always been under the same impression. I love to hire people who don't have clinical trial experience necessarily, because so much of what we do, I believe, soft skills. You can train people to read a protocol, you can train them to follow GCP. A lot of that's without, no offense, it's not rocket science, but I think, to be able to engage with patients and communicate effectively with PIs and have some clinical skills as well is way more important than having I mean, sometimes even more important than having clinical skills is having some great soft skills and great communication. I mean, I've always appreciated that because I came in without a degree, started out at the very bottom, so I can appreciate that. And I think what you're doing is you're planting seeds, man. You're planting seeds right now that, I mean, they're not only already starting to blossom, but I think the effect you're going to see over the next probably 2 to 5 years is going to be, amazing of what you're doing, where you're really starting to help move the needle in the right direction. Where again, I feel like a lot of pharma says one thing, but they don't really do shit about it, But you're pushing it. You're pushing them. You're making them be honest, right?
Yes, I love how blunt you are, Brad. Brad is I love it, Brad. You just like, yes, I'm gonna drop this. Almost
Well,
like dropping the F-bomb, but
well, I've heard other stories, of people of color in the industry being sort of marginalized, and even being in talks about diversity, but then still being shouted down about trying to increase that diversity. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like, but I have to think that it's going to have to continue to sort of come from the bottom up, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I love what you're doing, Erica here. Just a little love for you. Thanks for
Thank you,
commenting,
Erica.
Erica. Anything
Yeah.
else, or where can people find you? Sorry, I'm gonna bump you and keep moving. This is
No
my
worries.
first experiment doing this, so I seriously appreciate you coming on and telling us a little bit about your story. But where can people find you online?
Yes. So, and real quick before I go into where people can find me, thank you again, Brad. I think you are doing a great job. I love how, you came up with this, and, everyone is getting a piece of a little bit of everyone that's in this industry. So kudos to you. I need to sign up for StreamYard as well. So because I have it, but I haven't used it yet. So you're definitely made this easy for me to access. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Danielle Mitchell. You can go on the website, bwicr.com. That's short for Black Women in Clinical Research. We're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. I tell people all the time we have a TikTok, but I'm not doing any dancing. It's just really just sharing the information, and because that's TikTok is where the young people are. And so if we're going to get more people into clinical research, then we have to start with our youth, and we have to start with middle school and high school. If we really want to see a shift in this industry in the years to come, we have to invest in our youth. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle.
Already.
Later. All right. Well, all right. This is going better than I could have possibly hoped for. Thank you, Danielle. And looks like we have our own clinical
Brad.
research celebrity here, Dan.
Hey,
Dan,
man.
motherfucking Sparrow. What's up?
It was cool seeing you do this. I had to jump on in between today's work from home day, so I'm in between Zoom calls, and
Nice.
this is pretty cool, man. I like this.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm a little nervous coming in. Not knowing where things were going to go. But
I did this once on a Halloween in 2019 with Monica and Kobe, who was my coordinator at the time, and we had like a 5-hour live stream, and we took turns. Like there was a time we were all there together, and then we just took turns. We were in the clinic. So it was kind of cool. Maybe we'll do something like that again. I don't know about this Halloween, but in the
Sure.
future.
Well, what's up, man? What's new at UMA?
Nothing. We have SIV coming up Monday, so excited about that. Looks like it's finally a study we can actually enroll real world patients in. It's a phase 4, but the budget's decent.
Nice.
Chris, my business partner, tells me the budget's low, but considering
Volume.
how easy it is, and the volume, I think it's okay. So yeah, excited about that. Excited to see you on here. I was on with Danielle. That girl gets around because we were on this panel yesterday. It was pretty cool. So hats off to Danielle because she's working these events, man. Like I only do a few. Like if I like the moderator or the owner, you usually don't see me at like the conferences.
Yeah, I'm going to a couple, but it's even I'm already like regretting agreeing to doing them. Just my personality. Are you doing? Did I see you're going to SCRS?
I'm not.
You're
Maybe
not? Oh,
someone
okay.
from Latinos and Clinical Researchers.
Maybe okay. Maybe I misread that. Which ones are you? What are you hitting up?
Nothing. I'm hitting
Nothing
up
right
your
now?
live stream, man. Note to file is where you can catch me, guys.
Nice.
And my own. I let's take like a segue, and pharma can learn from this. The brand. I don't know if anyone follows Mr. Beast and what that guy's done on YouTube.
Sure.
All right, like 12 years building a brand. He outsold McDonald's. He made the world record for when he opened his burger joint last week. Set the world record for most burgers sold in a day. Guess what, guys? That's just a preview of things to come. I predict in 50 years, traditional brands will be replaced by content creators like Brad, like myself, like Danielle. And we can then compete because it's much easier, at least for consumer packaged goods, but maybe services too. It's much easier to actually do the business once it gets commoditized than it is to drive an audience. So I've been like just super fascinated by this idea, and Mr. Beast is like inspiring me from afar. And I'm not even like a fan of his channels, but just I respect the business, and I think it'll be interesting to see how we can do this in clinical research. And you're starting to see a lot of content creators coming out here too, and a lot of the tech vendors are starting to take notice as well.
Yeah, no, I've certainly noticed over maybe the last year or definitely last 6 months. I mean, there's a lot more people coming into the game, and I don't know, varying levels of like sincerity, I guess. I don't look. I mean, I get companies are going to do their thing, but like I don't really want to hear from like IQVIA podcast, right? Like
Right.
Come on, you know,
Right.
I mean, don't, that doesn't seem very sincere to me. Like, it's not very, it's just marketing, right? Or,
But
you know,
this angle, due to the conference question, this is what sparked in my head, and my dogs are gonna bark right now. But imagine if like 5 people 10 years from now, like me, you, whoever it will be, that have enough of an audience, they create their own physical conference. I think maybe 5 years is too soon, 10 years, whatever. If we live long enough to see it, I predict it's gonna happen. Because what value, and I'm not gonna name these conferences, but what value does a big brand owned by an IRB actually bring to a conference? Besides, it's very expensive. You got to pay to speak. Did you know a lot of these things you got to pay to speak?
yeah, that's insane. I've
So
never paid.
basically,
I've never paid to
infomercial.
speak, but yeah. Well, and look, dude. Look, I mean, let's not shit ourselves. I mean, where's the money, right? It's not with sites. So who are you going to serve? You're not going to serve sites. You're going to serve the people with the money. You're going to serve the CROs and the sponsors. And without saying any names, like you, I hate that there are site organizations that are way more in the pocket of CRO and sponsor than they are interested in actually helping and serving sites.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't know who that is, you know, message me. I'm happy to tell you all about it. But I've already kind of talked enough garbage about them online. But you know, I'm with you. I mean, I would love to see a more grassroots movement from the site side. You know,
It's coming.
as if people like us still exist. You know,
It's coming. I tried in 2018, 2019 to put on a conference. I had a conference planner, like professional people, but the audience wasn't there. I was actually very humbled. We got like 50 people saying they're going to go, which is amazing. But, you know, to compete with some of these bigger names, we need to either band together or just grow grow respectively so we could pull something like this off. But maybe in the next decade.
all right. Well, so that sounds like a goal. Like we need
Let's do
to
it,
we need
right?
to grow some audiences and you know, be able to put on a sustainable conference that isn't necessarily a fucking advertisement for every vendor under the sun. It's actually useful for the people that are attending.
Yeah, man. I didn't want to take too much more of your time. People can find me on your podcast. They can Google for when I appeared, and they can
Listen,
find
this
me
man
there.
is the clinical trials guru. He's selling himself short here. Clinicaltrialsguru.com, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
YouTube
If
channel.
websites still matter,
He's got a
websites
huge
still matter.
YouTube channel.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
TikTok.
yeah.
I'll sell my TikTok. I'm shamelessly promote. Okay, TikTok. I'm on there. I'm not dancing. Also, Danielle, but I'm on there. I try to be funny, and a lot of that stuff is not appropriate for LinkedIn. So, catch another side of me, TikTok.
You guys are doing TikTok. I guess I'm the old man here because I've avoided it.
It's okay, man. Once you're on there, we'll be ready.
I'm too scared. All right. Well, we're wrapping up here anyway. If anyone else wants to jump on, by all means, do it. This went well beyond my expectations. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't gonna, you know, get somebody up here who was gonna, you know, moon me or do something crazy and have to shut it down. But it's actually been really useful. So, Dan, thanks, dude. I appreciate you
Thank you,
hopping
Brad.
on.
Cool stuff, man. Catch you later.
For sure. Well, guys, thank you so much. We're kind of wrapping up here. I'll give a little, I don't know, 2 minutes or so if anybody wants to jump in that hasn't already done so. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep trying to hit these up on Thursdays. In addition to the podcast, I got incredibly sick last week after interviewing Mike Wanger. I blame him personally for it. I threw up for like 8 hours straight. But all jokes aside, I really appreciate you guys coming in and engaging. Like or subscribe or whatever, or don't. You know, I'm not the boss of you. So, but just thanks for showing up, and I really appreciate. Joseph, I sent you the link. I thought I want to give you an opportunity because I know you wanted to come on here. Let me find you. Check your LinkedIn messages. I'll give you a couple minutes, Joseph. Should be in there. No, Mike didn't say anything bad. I just, for some reason, as soon as I got done off the podcast with him, I just immediately got sick. It was like the weirdest thing. I think it was just a short stomach bug. So it was just a coincidence, but doesn't mean I won't give him a hard time about it. he is a vendor. I actually appreciate what he's doing. He's actually building something more site focused, which I think is unfortunately not nearly common enough. So I do appreciate that. Oh, Joseph's on his phone, so we'll have him on next time. We'll do more of these, maybe a little more organized. Although frankly, I appreciate the chaos as opposed to the sort of too thought out content that sometimes we sometimes see. So all right, guys, I'm going to sign off here. I actually have another call, but again, I really appreciate everybody coming on. Ethan, Jess, Doug, Danielle, Dan, very cool. I think we just made a little history. So thanks, guys.